NetsBoy, so let's hear what he has to say. His name is NetsBoy, he thinks the world is all over when the Nets just can't play. What up, Net fans? NetsBoy here, bring your latest in your Brooklyn Nets news. Okay, so let's dive right into this episode. It's been about 2 weeks since my last one, and the major news that has happened since my last episode was the fact that the Nets traded Trevor Booker to the 76ers and got Jahlil Okafor and Nick Stauskas. A trade that, also a second-round draft pick as well. And also in doing so, they waived Sean Kilpatrick. I'm just going to really spend this episode talking about that trade, talking about that move, and what I think it's going to be like for the Nets moving forward and those players. I'm not going to talk too much about how the Nets have looked lately. They're 11-18. They've had some solid wins, like the win against the Thunder and things like that. But they've also had some bad losses, like against the Hawks, and they got getting blown out by the Knicks constantly. The Knicks just seem like a much better team than them right now. But I'm not going to harp too much on what the Nets gameplay with this episode. This episode is more about that trade, because that's a major trade in my opinion. It's a major roster shakeup that the Nets have done. First and foremost, I just want to point out that I'm kind of right with one of my two NetsBoy bold predictions. If you remember, I said one of two things was going to happen. I said that Jared Allen will be a starter at some point this season, which I still firmly believe in. And then the other thing was that the Nets were going to trade Sean Kilpatrick. Now, to me, this is that. Now, technically, he got waived, but he ultimately was involved in a financial, not financial, but a roster move for a trade. The Nets traded Trevor Booker, who is a huge fan favorite. I really liked him. He brought a lot of energy and toughness and solid gameplay. But at the end of the day, this is a very good trade by the Nets. Trade a player who, let's be honest, he's not in the future plans of the Nets. We talked about that before. We talked about it when the Nets traded Lopez. It's not in the future plans. It's probably what we're going to talk about when the Nets trade Jeremy Lin. That's right. I said when the Nets trade Jeremy Lin, because that is almost a certainty that that's going to happen next season. If Lin opts into his contract, he might opt out, though I'm going to be honest, after an injured season, it would be smart for him to opt in, but I'm not going to harp too much into that. But yeah, so trading Booker and getting a former third overall pick and very talented big man in Jahlil Okafor, and getting a really solid perimeter player as well as a kind of like a Joe Harris 2.0 type player in Nick Stauskas was a great move. And they got a second-round draft pick in the deal as well, which is completely a side note, but that's a great move by the Nets, just trading Trevor Booker. And they shedded some salary, which we know that the Nets' salary cap is going to be very tight since they brought in all those bad contracts. So overall, it was a great move by Sean Marks, one that I feel like has to be made. Yes, I'm going to miss Trevor Booker. Yes, he was a great player, and we wish him nothing but the best. But in the big picture of things, in the grand scheme, I think this is a great move. Now, Jahlil Okafor has only played in one game since he's been acquired, and a lot of it has to do with, they're saying, conditioning and the fact that he hasn't played in a long time, only played in one game so far. And Nick Stauskas, I believe, had played in 2 games since being acquired, and had a great first game where he made like his first 5 shots and looked really good. I think Stauskas fits the mold of what the Nets are doing. Like I said, he's like a Joe Harris 2.0, very similar type of player, a 3-shooter, perimeter player who can put the ball on the floor and score and create a little bit, but, kind of in that style. Personally, I don't know if the Nets really need a Nick Stauskas the way this team is built, but it certainly doesn't hurt to have him. He fits that depth mold, and I think he just gives it, like I said, he's like a Joe Harris 2.0. So if something happens with injury, I think that they have another versatile wing type player. So I think the Stauskas portion of the trade is just kind of like okay, why not? He wasn't playing with the 76ers much at all. I think he played like 6 games this year. And I think he's a solid NBA rotational player, so I'm all for it. There's such a logjam with the guard position with the Nets, and from the point guard to the small forward. There's just a lot of cluster and a lot of players, but that's a good thing, because I think the reason why the Nets are 11-18, which I think is a very respectable record for what they've gone through, losing two of their main key players going into the season. I feel like that's because of the depth this team has. So adding Nick Stauskas, I think, is just another solid depth player. The real main draw of this trade is obviously Jahlil Okafor, a 2015 third round draft pick, a player who has not seen the light of day in the last season and a half, has been plagued by injuries, but his rookie year averaged 17 points and 7 rebounds. So a really skilled upside player, and that's the Nets calling card. And he just turned 22 years old, so he has a lot of potential, and I think that it's kind of like a no-brainer for the Nets. He's a free agent at the end of this year anyway, so it's kind of like, why not bring him in, see what he can do. If he doesn't work out, whatever, no harm in it. All we lost was Trevor Booker, a guy that we probably wouldn't have on this team in the future anyway, so let's just roll the dice. So a fantastic move, in my opinion, by Sean Marks. That being said, we haven't seen Okafor much. As I said, he played a one game. I believe he had 7 or 8 points, a couple rebounds, like a one block shot, but just seemed very rusty. In the one game that he played, he seemed very, very rusty and seemed like somebody who barely played this year, which is true. But you can see the skill there. You can see the potential there. My biggest concern, though, is what's going to happen with this Nets rotation. Because now a similar logjam you've created in the wing position, adding Stauskas, you created a unique jam in the center spot. Tyler Zeller has played phenomenally so far this year. He's been a pleasant surprise, and I've been very pleased with him. And he has earned the right to be in the rotation. He's currently the Nets starter. Jared Allen has been fantastic, and he's like one of my new favorite Nets, and everything about him he's done fantastic. Great energy, great reblocks. He's a fantastic defensive player. That block against Carmelo in the Thunder game was amazing. That was to me a highlight of just watching the Nets, was watching a rookie block the crap out of a superstar. It was like the time a couple years ago when Mason Plumlee blocked LeBron. I don't know if everyone remembers that. That was like 4 years ago or 5 years ago or something. That was when he was a rookie. It was like a turning point of being a Net, is watching a rookie block a superstar. There's something about that's just great. So Jared Allen obviously deserves the rotational minutes. So where does that leave Jahlil Okafor? He's more of a center than anything else. So, what's the rotation going to look like? I think that's more or less the reason why Okafor hasn't played that much since he's been acquired. Like I said, it's been about 3 games since he's been acquired, and he only played in 1. And my personal belief is not this whole he hasn't played in a long time, he's rusty, he's got to learn the system crap, because Stauskas also didn't play a lot, and he's played more. He's played in 2 of the 4. No, Stauskas has played in 2 of the 4, 2 of the 3 games that since he's been acquired. I think it's more or less like Kenny Atkinson saying, hey, I know you were playing with the 76ers and there wasn't really any rotation, any room for you in the rotation, but there's not really any room for you in the rotation right now either. Because who are you benching? Who are you benching between Zeller and Allen to allow Okafor to play? Now, you could make the case, hey, play him at the 4 spot as the power forward, and maybe that means, benching Quincy Acey, who, other than the last game against Pacers, has struggled to play. So maybe see how that works. See how a Jared Allen, Jahlil Okafor combo works, or a Tyler Zeller and Jahlil Okafor combo, or something like that. See how those guys play together. I mean, that could be the option, but it's really gonna be interesting to see what Atkinson does with these centers. Really, you would have thought, okay, Zeller's the odd man out, but he's played the best right now, in my opinion, of all the bigs. So you can't, you know what I'm saying? Like, where is this rotation going to look like? So that's my personal opinion of why we haven't seen a lot of Okafor. The only time he did play was in a back-to-back against with the Raptors, and Jared Allen sat out, and we didn't see Jared Allen play, and I hate that. I think Jared Allen should always play. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how Atkinson juggles his rotation with Stauskas. And don't forget about Isaiah Whitehead, who has played very well when he's had the opportunity to, but keeps on getting pushed back into the G League and plays well in the G League, by the way. He's a star there. and then gets called up, gets an opportunity to play, plays decently, but then always gets pushed back because there's just so much depth in the guard position. It's unbelievable, the depth with this Nets team, and that's a great problem to have. But it also makes you wonder, how can we see more of this team? How is it going to be? And I'm just very curious to see what Atkinson does moving forward. I think Okafor is a legitimate. I wouldn't say he's a legitimate star player, but I think he's a legitimate starter, good player. I see Okafor as a coughing. No, I see Okafor as a future 18 to 20 point, 7 rebound type scorer, kind of like the way Brook Lopez was. I mean, they actually kind of compare their skill set a lot. They say he's kind of like a Lopez meets DeMarcus Cousins type player, but at the end of the day, it's just not a lot of room for him right now. So I'm kind of curious to see what happens, but I do want to see him play. Personally, I would rather see Zeller sit and let Okafor play to see what he's got. I know that sounds terrible because Zeller has played the best of all the centers, but let's be honest here. It's not necessarily about who's playing the best, but developing these guys, all right? Zeller might be the best player, but we know who Tyler Zeller is as an NBA player. He's a solid big man who has a very soft touch around the rim, average rebounder, not a great defender, but has a good feel for the game. We don't know what Okafor is yet, and we see a lot of potential from Allen. Those two guys, to me, have to play. And if it means benching Zeller for the time being, or maybe benching AC and seeing how those guys work together, playing with the two bigs, then I think that Atkinson has to do it because we need to see the skill set. We need to develop these guys. We need to see how they play together. So that's what I would do personally, and I think that that's a little unfair to Tyler Zeller because of how well he played, but that's what I would do because, once again, the Nets obviously, are, like every team, have playoff aspirations, but this season is not about that. It's about the bigger picture and trying to see how these guys can play down the road and if they're a future piece to this for the Nets moving forward. And I think Okafor can be. I think Okafor and Allen, I think that's your center duo for the next, 5 years, in my opinion. I think that'd be a great combo, having one guy. I think Allen is better coming off the bench because he's an energy rebounding defensive guy, but I think those two guys definitely should be the future of the Nets center position. So I think they should play. But I think it's just really interesting how the Nets actually have the 2nd and 3rd overall pick now. Well, not pick, but the players that were drafted 2nd and 3rd overall in the 2015 draft, in D'Angelo Russell and Jahlil Okafor. Kind of gets you a little excited of what's going to happen when D'Angelo Russell comes back. And the way Dinwiddie has played lately, the development of LeVert and Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, and how good this team has developed, these players have been playing, and it will be interesting to see what this team looks like. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Overall, I'm pleased about the move, but I think we've got to see Okafor play more. I think he's got to see what he can do. And unfortunately, I think Zeller or AC's got to be the odd man out because we have to watch it. We have to see him. Anyway, that's it for this NetsBoy episode. I will be attending Wednesday's game against the Kings. If anybody here happens to be at that game and they recognize me, obviously I'm there because Vince Carter plays on the Kings. So, like every year, I always go to a Nets game when Vince Carter plays. So if you happen to be at that game and you happen to see me, you can say hey, which is yet to happen since I've done these NetsBoy episodes, but I ain't that popular. Actually, I'm barely popular. I won't even say I'm popular, but I get people watch my videos. I know that. So, but if you happen to be at the game, you see me, say hey, and if not, whatever, I'll be at that game. And hopefully Vince Carter actually plays because he doesn't always play with the Kings. And when he does, he plays very sporadically and whatever. I mean, the guy is the oldest guy in the league, so whatever. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about the Okafor and Stauskas additions and what you feel moving forward, what you want to see in the rotation. And if you agree with me that you think that Zeller or AC is going to have to get pushed to the back burner so we can see what Okafor has moving forward. So let me know what you think. Comment below and all that fun stuff that everyone's supposed to be doing, reposting and all that crap. So until then, this is NetsBoy, getting ready for the game on Wednesday, and signing off.